Jaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Nayanam Namaskritya.
Nayanam Namaskritya.
Nam Chaiva Narottamam.
Nam Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatyam Vyasam.
Devim Saraswati Vyasam.
Tato Jayam Udiraye.
Tato Jayam Udiraye.
Astaprayeshu Bhadresu.
Ashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke.
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke.
Bhakti Naistiki. Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah.
Usually when Angie sees me, she thinks I'll write the verse, but when I ran into her, I asked her if she could do it this morning because I was a little shaky. And
She
anyway,
forgot.
she didn't, or she forgot. And
Oh, it's not
it's
on the
not
board.
on the board, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, chapter 5, from the second canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's text number 5. So I guess if somebody's got it on their smartphone, they can follow along. Okay, word for word. Atman,
Atman,
Bhavayase,
Bhavayase,
Tani,
Tani,
Atman, Bhavayase, Tani,
Atman Bhavayase Tani,
Na, Para,
Para,
Bhavayan,
Bhavayam,
Swayam,
Swayam,
Na Para, Bhavayan, Swayam,
Na Para Bhavayam, Swayam,
Atma, Shaktim,
Shaktim,
Avastavya,
Avastavya,
Atma Sakyam, Avastavya,
Atma Shaktim, Avastavya.
Let's see, Purnanavir,
Purnanavir, Purnanavir,
Evaklamaha,
Ivaklamaha, Ivaklamaha,
Purnanavir, Evaklamaha,
Purnanavir, Ivaklamaha,
Atma Baba Yasetani,
Atma Bhavayase Tani,
Na Para Bhavayan Swayam,
Na Para Bhavayam, Swayam,
Atma Shaktim Avastavya,
Atma Shaktim, Avastavya,
Purnanabir Evaklamaha,
Purnanavir, Ivaklamaha,
Atman Baba Yasetani,
Atman Bhavayase Tani,
Napara Bhavayan Swayam,
Na Para Bhavayam, Swayam,
Atma Shaktim Avastavya,
Atma Shaktim, Avastavya,
Purnanabir Evaklamaha,
Purnanavir, Ivaklamaha,
Atman Baba Yasetani,
Atman Bhavayase Tani,
Napara Bhavayan Swayam,
Na Para Bhavayam, Swayam,
Atma Shaktim avastabhya
Atmasatim avastabhya
Urnanabhir evaklamaha
Urnanabhir evaklamaha Atmabhavaya setani
Atmabhavaya setani
Na parabhavayam swayam
Na parabhavayam swayam
Atmasaktim avastabhya
Atmashaktim avastabhya
Urnanabhir evaklamaha
Urnanabhir evaklamaha
Atman bhavaya setani
Atmabhavaya setani
Na para bhavayam swayam
Na parabhavayam swayam
Atma shaktim avastabhya
Atmashaktim avastabhya
Purnanabhir ivaklamaha
Urnanabhir evaklamaha
Nobody else? Atman bhavaya setani
Atman bhavaya setani
Na paravayam swayam
Na parabhavayam swayam
Atma shakti madhyavyam
Atmashaktim avastabhya Urnanabhir evaklamaha. Anyone else? Okay, the word for word. Atman. In parentheses it says Atmani. By self.
by self.
Bhavayase.
Bhavayase.
Manifest. Tani.
Tani
All these.
All these
All those.
All
Na. Not.
Not
Parabhavayan.
paravayam
Being defeated.
being defeated.
Swayam.
Swayam
Yourself.
Yourself.
Atmashaktim.
Atmashaktim
Self-sufficient power.
self-sufficient power.
Avastabhya.
Avastabhya.
Being employed.
Being employed.
Urnanabi.
Urnanabi
The spider.
The spider
Eva.
Eva
Like. Aklamaha.
Kama
Without help.
Without help
Is the spider very easily creates the network of its cobweb and manifests its power of creation without being defeated by others. So also you yourself, by employment of your self-sufficient energy, create without any other's help. Okay, please repeat. Is the spider very easily creates
as
As the spider very easily creates
the network of its cobweb
the network of its cobweb
and manifests its power of creation
and manifests its power of creation
without being defeated by others.
without being defeated by others.
So also you yourself,
So also you yourself,
by employment of your self-sufficient energy,
by employment of your self-sufficient energy,
create without any other's help.
create
without any other's help.
Srila Prabhupada's purport.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
The best example of self-sufficiency is the, can anyone guess? No, it's different than what was in the verse. Think about the whole universe. What would be?
It's Vishnu.
Well, outside of the personality of Godhead, there's something in the creation that we all see every day. Yeah, the sun. The best example of self-sufficiency is the sun. The sun does not require to be illuminated by any other body. Rather, it is the sun that helps all other illuminating agents. For in the presence of the sun, no ever illuminating agent becomes prominent. Narada compared the position of Brahma to the self-sufficiency of the spider, who creates its own field of activity without any other's help, by employment of its own energetic creation of salava. By employment of its own energetic creation of salava. Thus ends the Bhagavatam purport to the 5th verse of 5th chapter of the 2nd canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, the cause of all causes. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Bhagavati Mirandasya Vinanjana Shalakaya Chakshum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Kam Karoti Vachalam Pungam Lingayate Girim Yakripatam Aham Bande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So, at the start of the Cow Festival, we're talking about self-sufficiency, which is one of the big things for Hare Krishna forms, or it's been popular since the 60s, if not before. People have been self-sufficient since the beginning of creation. And, in one sense, human society is self-sufficient. The problem is when they start taking everything and using it up, and they can no longer maintain the type of self-sufficiency they had, such as the oil industry. If they use up all the oil, then everything goes kaput, even electricity. So, it becomes a big problem. So they're trying to figure out other ways to maintain the status quo, since, we built up, all this reliance on electricity and various types of combustion. Now we have to somehow ever maintain it, because we're used to living like that. Still, there's people that just wanted to depend on the things that are there every day, like the sun and the wind and the soil and the water. And, that's a more, in one sense, if you don't pollute it, it's a more ecological type of form of self-sufficiency. It's something that costs less unless you need big machines in order to do it. If you have one little self-sufficient form, it's one thing. But if you're trying to provide energy to a whole city with wind farms, then you have these gigantic machines that, if they break down, it's very expensive. And everything only has a certain duration of life. So when you're left after 40 or 50 years with these gigantic wind machines that are very difficult to take down, it's not easy, then, there's a problem, when we try to provide for the entire society living in huge cities. Therefore, our Vedic culture, Krishna's culture, was agrarian. People lived on farms, and their only big city was something built up around, some country or king, some warriors that protected the rest of the people from crime and some sort of foreign power coming in and trying to make everyone slave. So they would naturally have some town around them, or in some port, some harbor where other merchants were bringing goods. Naturally, you would have some sort of town or small city. But simply because of the complexity of providing sanitation and so many other amenities for so many people gathered in one place who need help with it all, that wasn't it isn't Krishna's type of society. He has an agrarian society where people just live in small villages and they basically work the land for their livelihood. They provide what they eat and they get some warmth from the forest, from the trees, make some fire, or they get some fire from their cows, from cow dung. It's a cow culture, just like our cow festival. It's a cow culture where instead of being nomadic, herding cows and sheep and goats and gradually becoming a barbarian group of plunderers, they maintain a civilization of many, many, many villages with many, many cows, all protected by some, powerful country. And this worked out fine in other ages because the Kshatriyas and the Brahmins were so strong that they could always provide protection. But in the Kali Yuga, the Brahmins and Kshatriyas aren't powerful enough. And what happens is that the Malechas and Yavanas take over. And they do just the opposite. Instead of protecting the cows, they come and start raising the cows to eat. And everything breaks down. And we have a civilization like we have today, where it appears to be sophisticated, and in some ways it's certainly politically and economically advanced. But it all depends currently on animal slaughter to feed everyone practically. Otherwise, why are they having this big, they have this big rant, everybody's bent out of shape because Brazil is simply doing what everybody else did. They're simply exploiting the resources of their boundaries. But everybody's saying, no, you can't do that because the world's become such that we need that forest so the rest of us can breathe properly. You can't cut it down. Brazil says, that's really funny. You've cut down all yours, to make, to do what you wanted to do with it. And you're complaining that we're cutting it all down because, you don't have it. So they only cutting it down to make, pasture for beef cows, for the beef industry, so they can sell it to America. Because here people have enough money to keep buying, pound after pound of that stuff. So this is what happens in, Malachian Yavana civilizations. Even in Lord Chaitanya's time, it wasn't so bad. They didn't really pollute the water or the soil. They maintained all the forms. They were just interested in extracting the wealth. And of course, they were also interested in converting everybody, to worship like they worship. And, extremely sectarian people who, think everything else is bad other than, their prophet and their scripture. And, therefore, everything has to be, purified by, the might of their swords. So, but otherwise they didn't build up an industry, or they didn't even maintain huge slaughterhouses to feed the masses. Everything was done on a local level. With many villages and some towns surrounding where the kings lived, and on the port cities, and someplace, maybe some mining town where they mine different minerals, diamonds or gold or something like that. So even back in Lord Chaitanya's time, you could, the Ganges was, everybody drank from the Ganges, and nobody dumped all sorts of waste into it. Everything, the air was still pure. You didn't have their people wear masks. It wasn't smog. when all these difficulties that we confront, with our so-called advanced civilization. So here in the West, in the heart of the Malachian Yavana civilizations is where Srila Prabhupada came and taught Krishna culture, beginning with the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and Sankirtan and deity worship and temple practice, teaching through the books, and then also creating a society, something like we found in previous ages, where people are depending again on the land and on their cows and on God, to provide the proper rain and the proper sunlight and all these things. But it's just the opposite, and that modern civilization, they consider all that primitive. That's the last thing they want to do, is go back to that type of life. They consider that 18th century, 19th century lifestyle. They consider people were poor, and they can only really love the glamour of their modern civilization, where it's extremely capitalistic. Everybody's into getting a buck out of what they do, from athletes to musicians to doctors and lawyers, whomever it may be, politicians, merchants. Everybody is trying to amass as much wealth as they can. And even when they realize that for the whole this may not be good, they condemn any effort to try to do things on a more equal basis where everybody benefits, because they're all so lusty for being the person who may make the most bucks that they don't want that opportunity to go away. So, just see who they'll elect in the next election. They'll probably be the biggest capitalists. Because why? But why will they vote like that? Because, they aspire for that. They don't want that opportunity to go away. So, still they're not the controllers. The Almighty Supreme Personality of Godhead is. And He'll bring about change so that Lord Chaitanya's movement can become stronger and more popular, and actually give everyone the opportunity to live naturally and simply, and give the devotees more and more opportunity to learn and teach that example, live that example themselves, so that others can learn. And we can all, again, just live off of Mother Nature. Take what we need in this lifetime and go back home to God. They've even forgotten how to die. I mean, nowadays, to die, you either die poor or you become poor dying. Because they take all your money keeping you alive. Even though you should have died, they still keep you alive, as though you're happy. And most people, because they're so attached and afraid to move on, they want to stay like that. And they don't want to move on. They're not doing anything. They can't get out of bed. They can't even breathe on their own. And still, people will fight to keep themselves alive, and their families will fight to keep them alive. And meantime, all the wealth of the families, lost doing that. And the state's only going to provide so much. So, this is the type of civilization we live in. People, we've forgotten how to even die. Right? It's something that everyone has to do in life. It's happening every day. Every flower bud wilts and dies. Every creature lives and dies. You see the cows, they just sit down, and it may be just for one night. They'll sit down and one night they're gone. But generally it's not more than a week. They sit down, and usually within a week to 10 days, at the very most, 2 weeks, then they're gone. They haven't, it didn't cost anything. They just sit down. If they're lucky, some devotees go there and try to put some hay around them so they can rest easier. They give them some water. They try to give them something to eat. They eat until they get tired of eating. And, people chant. But other than that, they just sit down and then they're gone. How do all the deer, if they're not shot by some hunter, how do they die? They just sit down and die. But human beings, we immediately make an arrangement for 911 to go there, and then they hand you a big bill. Somebody's got to pay for it. Give you a big bill. Medicare is not paying for it. Some insurance is not paying for it. They expect you to pay for it. And then they bring you to a hospital, and they're also expecting you to get paid. Somehow or other. To keep you alive. And maybe you get to go home. At the best, people live 20 years, 30 years longer. But, one day, then we die. So there's absolutely no preparation for it, other than maybe physically. We have hospice service. People physically understand how people die. But there's no, there may be some spiritual preparation within their different, religious heritages. There's certainly, that is taught. And, people, there are certainly faithful people who try to fix their mind on God and, go to the other side, or go back home to God, go to the kingdom of God. That ultimately is what it's all about. From the day we entered this world, it was just a temporary place. Just like having an apartment. You have an apartment, but it's not your apartment. It's somebody else's apartment. You just live there. You keep it as nice as possible while you're there. But you don't have to worry about it when you go. It belongs to somebody else. So similarly, we have this body, but when we give up this body, we don't have to worry about it. Nature will take care of everything. We just move on. And the devotees, everything is nice. We learn to be the self-sufficiency. Part of this self-sufficiency, part of the reason devotees can live in a cow culture, depending on just crops and cows, and the Lord's mercy, is because they're self-satisfied. That's a part of self-sufficiency. You have to be self-satisfied. Satisfied with yourself and not satisfied with the whims of the body. The body will never get enough. Just like a cow. If you keep putting grain in front of a cow, it will keep eating till it eats itself to death. Because it's a cow. Cows are sacred, but cows are still cows. They're mammals. They're not human beings. It's a species below the human existence. They cannot understand God realization. They're simply a creature in the mode of goodness that represents all the Devas and Lakshmi herself, And, they're pure and they're meant for the advancement of human society because it's human beings who can go back home to God here. The soul in a cow's body takes its next birth as a human being. So, but still, cow has a cow's brain. It says that a cow sees through its nose because it can see what grass it wants to eat. Whereas a human being either sees through Shastra or it sees through its eyes where it thinks is, So it's a human being that can, understand philosophy, can understand the Vedas, can understand the purpose of life. It's a human being that can learn to read and comprehend these things. It's a human being that can memorize things, beyond the simple calls of a cowherd guy. Not a cow. So, they can't control their senses if they're put into a certain situation. So if you keep giving a cow grain, they eat themselves to death. Just like, dogs. If you give it the wrong food, it's not that it'll always turn it down. Sometimes it'll eat too many sweets and fried things and get sick, just like the cow. If you feed it human food, it'll eat until it gets diarrhea and gets sick and dies. Because it's not meant to eat human food. They eat grass and they eat, things like vegetables, things that are grown out of the ground, that are fresh. You can't cook it, especially in oil, and give it to a cow. It'll ruin their stomachs. So, but a human being, we have the opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead. And the cow, Krishna has given us the cow to assist us with that. First of all, it's the cow's milk that makes the brain potent. Like you see some of these boys that grew up here when they were kids, they just drank milk. They have such potent brains now. They drank milk like the first 5 years of their life, and their brains become so potent. Drinking this cow's milk. So, the cow's milk is liquid religion. And then everything about the cow, like Krishna, when Krishna was attacked by Putana, then, after he sucked the life air out, and all the people came and got him, and, they started doing things that they thought would protect him, like smear his body with the dust raised by the hooves of the cow, take the cow's tail and, hit him with the cow's tail all over, put tilak all over his body and call out the names of Vishnu. There's so many things from the cow that bathe him in the cow's urine, to protect him. And so, but we can't expect the Malechas and the Yavanas to understand any of that. First of all, they have to become purified. It's not that they're different, their souls and human bodies, but based on their lifestyle, you lose the ability to understand. Just like you may take a person born in a Brahmin family, and if he changes his lifestyle, they lose the ability to understand. For example, at the recent Howdy Modi event in Houston, Texas, which brought together 60,000 Indian immigrants who, either citizens, green card holders, or still immigrants, but people of means, of good positions in America attended the event. So that they had some of the immigrants speak about their immigration experience. And so one Brahmin talked about how he converted to meat eating. And you can see how his whole mentality converted. How now he's become a Malecha.
Why would they have someone like that speak?
Because somebody prominent in the material world. Why do we have Donald Trump speak? Or, so-and-so speak? Because they're prominent in this society. So, but that's what he said. He said, worse than that. I just didn't want to repeat what he said exactly. But, he actually said, to hell with the holy men. To hell with the scriptures. Why? Because he saw that the Americans were eating this, and they were becoming stout and strong. What he didn't see was 40 years later when they have cancer and are dying. That's how small his intelligence is. So it's a matter of lifestyle, just like Ajamil, was a Brahmin, pure Brahmin, and then he changed. And until he started acting like a Brahmin again, he couldn't be a Brahmin. How can you be a Brahmin, or how can you be a devotee, if we don't act like that? You know, we act the wrong way. You know, we go into the bars, we go to McDonald's. You know, we are addicted to pornography, and you know, we're always spending our time in the gambling casino, and you know, we become poor and a derelict because we lost all of our money. Then, you know, what do we expect? I mean, how can one be a devotee, you know? By Krishna's grace, because the soul, after all, is a devotee, might remember Krishna. Krishna's there trying to give us some remembrance. And you see that happening to people every day. I mean, every day. You know, they realize, you know, what they've done wrong, and they try to turn back to a godly way of life. You see that every day. Even like a couple of weeks ago at the Sam's Club store, where all the rich Americans shop, at least in a golf course. Well, it wasn't there I saw it in the slide out. There were a group of men with Project Hope. And Project Hope was the hope to become free from addiction. They had ruined their life through addiction. And now there was some hope as they turned back to God, you know, and were giving up that type of lifestyle. And they were out there just like the Boy Scouts or the Salvation Army, just collecting donations for Project Hope. You know, all elderly men, you know, my age, you know, out there, you know, just you know, asking for donations. So, by Krishna's grace, people can return to Krishna consciousness. That's what the Hare Krishna movement is all about. But you know, the fourth, or in one sense, the greatest wave of that movement. I don't know if you could say greatest because the Sankirtan is so great, and the temples and the deities are so great, and the books are so great. But so is the culture, you know, the cow culture, the dependence on Mother Bhumi, the land, and the cows, that type of lifestyle. That is also great, and you know, it gives a different type of opportunity. You know, some people, like we see even amongst our own children. You know, some of them can't take shelter of the holy name on a really regular routine of mantra chanting. Nor can they be even very much attracted to memorizing Vedic literature like even Bhagavad Gita. Or even worshiping the deity. But yet they'll be 100% devoted to the cows. And they'll even say, you know, the cows will take me back to Godhead. Because Krishna will be pleased. You know, Krishna will be pleased. There was this, I don't want to call her a Mayavadi, but something like that comes from like one of these yoga cyclic successions. Sometimes they're Mayavadis, sometimes they're Brahmavadis. They're very seldom Vaishnavas, usually Shivites. She was like dealing with all the absurdities that people think about Indian culture, and showing how Indian culture is so tolerant and how other cultures are so intolerant against it. And she's going over one thing after another. She's doing it really nicely. And she speaks in that, she's a foreigner speaking English. And so she speaks just like that 16-year-old girl who's from Sweden who's going around the country. Just say you would almost think that it was that girl talking, because she sounds the same way. Maybe she's Swedish, I don't know. But she's speaking in English like that, with that particular type of accent. Speaking really sweet. And so when she gets to about the cows, she said, why should they find so much fault, in Indian people's reverence for cows? I mean, after all, she didn't say most attractive, but she said like the attractive Hindu god Krishna. And at that time they show a picture of Krishna with the cows, he loved the cows. And then she gives reference, I don't know if she gave reference to Jesus with sheep or something like that, but she can't remember. So she was making the point that naturally they have some reverence for cows because Krishna, who they worship as God, had reverence for the cows. Krishna never slaughtered cows, he never killed cows, he wasn't that type of cowboy like we're familiar with in the West. He was, a Krishna cowboy, whom nobody's familiar with in the West. They're just learning about those types of cowboys that, protect cows. So anyway, we have, a long way to go, but still we see that there are many people who, that's how they come to Krishna consciousness, is through the land and the cows. And maybe they hear them, certainly they hear the mantra if they get here, but many of them come, maybe not for worship or for chanting or for philosophy or books. They come because of the cows and the land, and that's how they start even. And others may have, like when we first bought this farm, we were just living in the city, doing what all the devotees do in the beginning, Prabhupada's routine of waking up and chanting Hare Krishna and attending artis and, taking care of the temple and the deities and going out on Sankirtan and distributing books and paying the rent and, buying boulder and offering it to Krishna and, and serving out prasadam and doing that day after day. But then, you're reading Krishna book and you're seeing, you're reading how Krishna lived. And so then we were thinking, that would be really neat to live like that. Krishna didn't live in the city, and Prabhupada would often make statements like that. You can't eat nuts and bolts. It's not, this manufacturing civilization. He would say something critical about it. The natural way to live is, depending on God, and the earth will provide everything. So we were thinking, we ought to live like that. So, but there was only like one farm in all of North America, and devotees who wanted to live on a farm would naturally go there. But in a place like New Orleans, it wasn't a big city, it doesn't have a big population thing around it. And so there was never many devotees. So the temple president, he didn't really want to lose any devotees. And so he thought, we better create a farm. At the same time, he had his own motives. He was a real survivalist. He was expecting war at any time. And so he wanted to get out of the cities before some disaster happened. And so, that's why we bought the farm, so we could live like Krishna. And that's, the first thing we did was get some cows and milk the cows and herd the cows and grow some boga, grow some food and offer that to Krishna. But you're doing it on your own property. No longer do you have neighbors complain if you're too loud. No longer do you have people who don't like the way that you're worshiping or chanting coming by and yelling and screaming and maybe throwing a rock. Of course, they did that here too. But still, you have more land, generally speaking. Nobody's complaining about how loud you're chanting, how loud the kirtan is. If you're in the city, they always complain. The next door neighbors always complain. Can't you hold it down? I mean, even today we have complaints from the neighbors, they don't want so many cars parking in front of their house. They don't want, a kirtan going on when they're trying to sleep, etc. So, but out here we didn't have any of those problems. It was like, Krishna had provided. He had given us a space to live like he used to live. And we could live like that, just dependent on the cows. And And they would provide so much, just like they're doing now. You know, there was just a few of us, but there was so much milk. I mean, every day we were getting like 10 gallons of milk just in the morning and less at night. But, you know, I would be spending all day long in the kitchen, you know, making paneer or making yogurt or making sweet rice. We grew wheat, and it was more difficult to make flour. You know, you could have an electric grinder. But we would take and crack the wheat, and we would boil milk. And then we would put the cracked wheat in it. And then we would take the sugar cane, like we're going to take in the cow festival, and make syrup out of it. It was too hard to make sugar out of it, because, you know, we're doing it by hand, and we generally you burn it, you know. But to make syrup wasn't hard. Sometimes that syrup would crystallize into sugar. But then we would boil that wheat in the milk, and just to make it more tasty, we'd put in some of the cow's butter. And then we would pour the sugarcane syrup in. And then that would be our cereal for the morning. Usually you'd eat so much cereal, you couldn't eat anything for lunch, you know, until later, much later in the day, you know. So, but that's, living like, Krishna lived. Whereas in the city, we would go, at that time you can do it, right now we can't do it. You know, everybody's so much afraid of being sued. They won't give you anything that's going bad, because they're afraid if you get sick, you're going to turn around and sue them. But we used to go to the dairy, and we would tell them, hey, you have any old butter and milk and stuff, for our farm? We're pig farmers. We tell them we're pig farmers. And they would say, yeah, go get it, it's over there. And so we'd load up all the old milk and butter and all that, and we would just go through it. What was already curdled, we'd throw away. And, the butter, we didn't worry about that. We would just take the butter and make it into ghee. But, we would get it all from the local dairy industry. And I don't know if you could get away with doing that now or not. Whether they would give it to the pig farmers. We used to be able to go to the Walmart and go to the where they sell the produce, and if they had something going old, the manager would make a deal and sell it to us cheap. Now they're afraid to do that. Somebody must have sued them, I can still go to one of the other grocery stores. It belongs to the Independent Grocers Association. It's the Claiborne Hill. And they'll sell us things cheap that are going bad, but they can't really put it on their shelves because nobody's going to buy it, because they want something that's going to last longer. Whereas we can buy it, at a really, really greatly reduced rate, because we're going to cook it in the next few hours or the next day. So, but otherwise, we can, we grow our own food, and we see that there are so many, in this country, American, boys, girls, ladies, gentlemen, who are interested in this way of life. Just like so many of them. That generally the problem is we don't have facility to help people, get started with it. Either they have to be able to do it on their own, or they can come here and learn. But otherwise, there's even a lack of housing for full-time devotees. Just for devotees that want to come here, there's not enough housing. So that's one of the main things we do, is try to, create more of these things. And like Srila Prabhupada did, we have to create it in such a way that, people can, they want to utilize it. It sort of meets the status quo enough that, people can live in it. Otherwise, in Krishna's time, it wasn't very difficult to go to the bathroom. But for us, just to go to the bathroom, we spend $40,000 to repair the bathroom, so people go to the bathroom, take a shower.
That is an addiction.
And so, Srila Prabhupada did the same thing, and he had to create a facility first, for his disciples.
In Mayapur, he told, maybe everybody knows this, but for the devotees, you could just sit under a tree and chant, but then who will come? So that's why he made such an effort to create the Mayapur city.
Who would come, even who would stay. I can't imagine the mosquitoes, you have to sit under a tree with a mosquito net around you, All right, it's past 8:30. Any other comments, questions?
Just when you were talking about the medical industry, how they keep people alive just so they can exploit them, it just made me think of Manrupa, how when she was diagnosed with cancer, they tried with some different natural things. And then I think towards the end, they could like they did actually, I don't know if they just considered it or they tried some kind of allopathic thing, but that they did it for a little while, and then, but it was having so horrible, they have to undergo that, it's so painful and ongoing. So she just decided that it's time to get ready and go. And she didn't actually leave from the cancer. She waited till my Guru Maharaj came to Manipur. They went to Manipur and she waited, and then she asked his permission to leave, and she just quit eating and drinking, and really like a yogini practically. And she just left. I've heard husband tell us about when she actually left, that you could see a blue light shining in where her heart is, and then it just.
I don't know how much the medical industry, they're just caught up in the whole mess. They just do, according to policies and things like that. But there's only so much that they can do. It's just that people also keep doing whatever they can do. They're just not prepared, like my friend Vijay. The sister wants to take her mother off the respirator, but Vijay won't do it. The hospital can't even keep him anymore. So he pays nurses at his house to do it. As the family fortune gradually gets, she gradually, he doesn't care, he just wants to keep his mom alive. But it's not like she's in a coma, she's actually aware. And they even can work her off the respirator a little bit, but not fully. But, still, within the family, we hear about it many times, stories like this. The family's divided on whether to take them off the respirator or leave them on the respirator. So that's how it is in his family. He's intent. And I don't know, if Krishna wants to take her, he can take her any time. Somehow she stays day after day for the past 3 years. Yeah, Mother Mahalakshmi.
I know that when my mother had left her body, that right before she did, the nurse, hospice lady, they gave me a booklet, and you were the one that stamped it. What's that called? Anyway, they had to go through and have everything verified that she was not wanting to be on a respirator, not wanting to go to the hospital, not wanting any medical things. All this paperwork had to be done. And when she did leave, the different people, when they started coming, the guy was like, well, did they try to resuscitate her? And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. I have the paperwork here. And the one paperwork that was like the last one that said that she didn't want to be revived wasn't signed.
Krishna.
And the man just looked at me, and then he looked at Mom, and she had obviously been dead for a few hours, you know, and he said, you know, she's 98 years old, you know, then he said, well, I guess we don't need to do anything.
We're gonna take you to jail.
But yeah, that, you know.
How did we miss that, huh?
Yeah, I don't know how we did. It's the last paper. There were maybe about 4 or 5 of them that we did that too. What's that called? That you can notarize?
Yeah, it was notarized, but it was a power of attorney for one's health issues.
Yeah, all those
Sorry,
different things.
where did you get, where did you have to go and get these things?
For just a little while, my mom was having a home health nurse come, and they gave it to us.
You can get those from hospice, or they're probably available online. Ask some of the devotees, they can help you.
Every time you go to a hospital now, no matter how grave your illness is, they give you those papers to sign.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was going to say that we live in a very rural area in Mexico, and I have this little center, and I have a bazaar, you know, like a sale on Saturday, whatever. So this lady became a customer, and then she became vegetarian, and then, you know, after 2 years maybe, she tells me that she wanted me to go see her father because he was dying. And so I went to see her father, 98 years old, I think, laying in bed, but just alert, like, you know, like a normal person, no machines, nothing. And I said, well, would you like me to chant? And she said, yeah, please. So we chanted Hare Krishna with him, and he repeated, and I asked him his story, because it's amazing how there is a person that is dying, but it's just normal, you know, in bed, just like you say, like a cow, peacefully. He said that he worked in the fields all his life, you know, just planting corn and weed. That all was his life was. And you can see right there how karma works, you know, how Krishna was giving him such an easy way out. Nothing, you know, it was no disturbance, nothing. And yeah, just a few months later, we went there a couple times and we chanted. And he chanted Hare Krishna, but he also chanted a song that he, you know, had composed when he was young, just about nature, how pretty was the fields and the surroundings, and how happy he was, and, you know, just very mode of goodness. Very nice. So a couple months later he died, but his daughter was very grateful that we were able to give him a little bit. Of course, I took Vrindavan dust and Ganges water and everything, and so he got all those little things. But it was a very nice thing to see, you know, because I've been taking care of people here in the United States, and I know how it is. They are in the last days, and the family or the government or whoever is in charge of them, they get all these machines. If we cannot transfer them from the bed to the chair, they get this lift thing, and you have to manage that, and then you have to have so many things. It's just so complicated, you know. And this person was just laying down in bed, and then he looked pretty easy, you know. No, not a big deal. But it was because of the kind of life that he had to, like I said, karma-wise. So that was a nice thing to see.
Anything else? Hey, Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.